Welcome to Still with Purpose. This is Amanda and Christy.
Our goal is to dig deep and discuss real, raw subjects in pursuit of greater self-awareness, positive transformation and healing, and to link arms and journey with you to find purpose and passion in life. Welcome back. Today, we're talking about the question, have you ever felt tension between who you show the world and who you know you really are? Amanda, do you have a quote for us to start?
Yep. People can't consistently act in ways that contradicts their true identity. Well, I should say they can and they do, but it's a downward spiral from there, being out of integrity in all areas eventually. So when you're grounded in who you are and who you were created to be, your conscience connects and agrees, and then your values and moral code develop from there. I believe personally the first step in this is to walk through forgiveness with your creator and yourself and others. And then it's my understanding that only he can change you.
He is in charge of all change. But we've said it before, we have to be in the position to want change and to recognize change is needed, but he's got to do the changing of our heart.
When you're completely in tune with what God is doing in your life, then you are unable to contradict the identity that you have in Christ. And there's too much accountability, really. The self-worth comes in because you've dealt with your past and forgiveness, and then there's an understanding of the past, and then you just keep going down that path. All of a sudden, eventually, you can tell where you are because all of a sudden it will feel off with what you were once comfortable with, and the cesspool of your old life and the old patterns and the things that you used to do, that disrupts your peace now and your deepest longings. So that's when you've made a good shift.
So with the quote, have you ever felt the tension between who you show the world and who you know you really are? I mean, now you're talking about the shift that can happen when you go back to being who you were really meant to be.
There's an underlying conscience that's been built. And now when you're trying to be in your cesspool behavior, I love that word, or your past or your old choices, then you are uncomfortable. There's something that's out of integrity conscience-wise, and now you have a choice to make.
That's interesting. I think in all the changes that I've made over the last however many years, I don't like giving timestamps because inevitably they're wrong. So let's just call in the last handful of years. I don't think I've ever wanted to look back or go back with giving up, let's just say drinking, or we've talked about it in another episode, filling my time with mindless things that aren't driving me towards growth or fulfilling what I feel I'm called to do. I don't have a desire to go back to that, which is great. But I know that if I did, I would be so uncomfortable and feel so out of sync and out of integrity.
And if you get triggered on something that triggers your past, that's when you'll really see it. You'll be like, oh, that's my old behavior with that old wound that I've never healed.
That's a good point. I think sometimes a memory will pop up and I'm like, ooh, I remember that situation, or I remember doing that or thinking that. And it does make me feel uncomfortable. Start questioning, how was I in that frame of mind or whatever it is? And there is an uncomfortableness.
So let's switch over to the other side. If someone is the opposite of that and they're choosing a severed conscience, we talked about that a couple of weeks ago, they physically cannot contradict a shame-filled identity, a victim stance, seething hatred for self and others, unforgiving stubbornness, overwhelming darkness, and a severed conscience for long. They must keep serving the master that they've chosen. So this kind of goes into a story, a tale. It's called The Tale of Two Wolves. And the battle between the two wolves is inside us all. One is evil. It is anger, envy, jealousy, sorrow, regret, greed, arrogance, self-pity, guilt, resentment, inferiority, lies, false pride, superiority, and ego. The other is good. It's joy, love, hope, serenity, humility, kindness, benevolence, empathy, generosity, truth, compassion, and faith. This is a story between a grandfather and a grandson. So then the grandson says, which wolf wins though? And the grandfather says, the one you feed.
That's so enlightening and true.
So again, we're at choice, right? We're at choice to either have a severed conscience or just choosing all the negative things that are out there, or we can choose a life of happiness in stepping into our true identity. identity of who we were actually created to be. But if you do not even have a relationship with your creator or even believe in a creator, then how would you ever take on those qualities?
Great question. And with the story, the more you feed, the stronger each one gets. So having a relationship with God and meditating on God's word, goodness and love, that's feeding one wolf over the other. If you don't have that relationship, you're probably feeding the bad wolf.
And we've talked about in the past, the 5 closest people you hang out with, that includes your inner critic, that includes even YouTube influencers that you're listening to a ton of content from. You are taking on the qualities that they possess, and that has got to be watched. You are feeding with social media and all of these outlets into your soul, TV, binge watching, all the stuff that we feed ourselves. That's what's feeding the wolf now in this day and age. All the outlets that are coming in through our ears and eyes, pretty much.
It's interesting with the algorithms of social media. Googling something brand new that I've never really started Googling before. And now I'm getting bombarded with all of these messages about it all of a sudden. And it's just really clear because I'd never gotten a lot before. And now they're just nonstop.
If you watch 3 seconds of a video, you are now in that hashtag, probably for a month. It's unnerving, honestly. So you have to be super careful with even seconds of your life because you're basically opening a door for that content to start streaming in. And I've gotten convicted quite a bit. I did a 30-day social media fast and it was awesome. Don't get me wrong. I was acting like coming off the addiction hardcore. What am I going to do with my life? Oh my gosh. So I created so much time for myself to actually dig into content that actually served me instead of listening to, let's say, a 30-year-old on dating and he's not even a Christ follower. And then I'm just like, wait, that's actually probably not the content that is truth for me. But when it's rolling through my feed at all times during the day, then that's what I'm feeding myself. And so if I come to the conclusion that I'm depressed, comparing, not content, then I have to look at what I'm feeding myself. And I have to start with social media always.
And it makes me angry that I'm allowing someone or something, meaning the algorithm, the machine, to be feeding me. We're feeding ourselves because we're allowing it, but we're basically just being spoon-fed by something completely outside of us, which is even more crazy.
Well, you're in marketing, so you know.
Oh, yeah. All the data. There's data out there. It's known when you have your phone picked up in a certain position, like you're engaged and you're reading it, versus it's laid down on your bedside table and you're not engaged. So you're going to get a notification to pick up your phone. It's down to all of your interests, all of your purchases. It's scary crazy. So it's no wonder that we get certain content that we eat up. Like you said, you're not going to turn away the 30-year-old that's talking about dating because that's something that you might be interested in. But when you really take a step back and say, what am I watching with a clear view of it? It doesn't make any sense. But you'll eat it up if it's served to you.
And if I'm buying into that theory, we won't even go into politics, but obviously this plays into that too. Yeah. We're all being fed different things. So you are absolutely in control of what your feed looks like. If it's incredibly negative or not supporting you at all, that's your choice to choose that.
There was a story years ago, and it was of a person, I'm sure people may remember it. She was on national news and she had gone to a Target and she had made a total scene and a total mess. And it was a political outburst, essentially. And she was part of a group that was very extreme. But I read somewhere that she said because of social media, she felt like there were people like her all around. So she didn't think there was anything weird for her to go and do what she did. She was living under the false reality that everyone was acting this way, essentially. Everyone was that extreme about it. So you start living in this world where you think that that is the case with everyone, but it's not. It's just in your bubble of algorithm.
Kind of terrifying.
I know. Another example, actually, that I thought, I wonder if this person has done this. It was a person that is about my age and started posting a ton of pictures, pretty scantily clad. But then I started thinking, well, maybe she's seeing other moms her age doing this, that she's getting fed. So she thinks that's the norm.
Well, or she's losing the friends that aren't going to like that. They're going to move that out of their algorithm or hide you or whatever to stay your friend. So you got to be really careful with what you're putting out there because you could be hidden for the rest of your life. So is it worth being that crazy and outspoken and way over on that side? I don't know. That remains for each person to figure out.
I think it depends on what you're being outspoken about. If it's something that's in line with your beliefs and where you're trying to go in life and towards your purpose and calling, absolutely shout it from the rooftops. But if you sit back and say, am I doing something that doesn't feel right? Even if it does feel like everyone else is doing it, I need to take a checkpoint.
My question to myself usually is, am I seeking validation and attention? And then I usually take it down. Or I'll see what the responses are to it. And if those are people I have no desire to have commenting on my stuff, or I get the weird attention that I wasn't looking for, then I'm like, oh, I gotta switch up how I wrote this because basically the responses are telling me either I'm in victim mode or I'm in negative aspects of life, or I'm coming from joy, love, peace. The quote I wrote down too was, the fruit of a man is always a dead giveaway of what master or wolf they are choosing. And just going into some scriptures that I pulled for this was Galatians 5:22-23. But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Against such things there is no law. And then Galatians 5:19-21, the opposite of that is the acts of the flesh, which are obvious: hatred, discord, jealousy, fits of rage, selfish ambition, dissensions, factions, and envy, drunkenness, orgies, and the like. So those are complete polar opposites. And those are the two wolves. And that's kind of a gauge or a plumb line that you can actually go on to do a personality check of like, hey, where am I at? Because we're capable of being all of those qualities. Absolutely.
I do love the analogy of the wolf, to stop and say, which one am I feeding? And so all the characteristics or fruits of the spirit or fruits of this flesh that you just read off, you're saying it's a good gauge. Which wolf am I feeding? What am I presenting to the world? Which of these characteristics am I putting forth to the world? And that should tell you, if you don't already know, if you can't already tell, what have you been feeding?
Another way of telling where you're at is who wants to hang around you. Because I can guarantee a person that's coming from peace, patience is not going to listen to your negative energy for more than 2 minutes. They're going to be like, oh, I have to get to an appointment. They're just going to hightail it out of the conversation and the energy. So if people chose to be self-aware around every situation they're in, you can actually read the room so well that your energy is showing up a certain way and you can shift right then and there and not lose the hold on the room. But if you aren't self-aware and not noticing that people are choosing out, then you might miss an opportunity, whatever that might be, in business or friendship or something that would benefit you. So when a person walks in step with their creator, the evidence is unmistakable, right? The fruit of the Spirit begins to grow naturally: love that restores, joy that can't be shaken, peace that stills the storm within, and patience that waits without resentment, kindness that softens the heart, and goodness that chooses, and faithfulness that endures through trial, gentleness that leads with humility, and self-control that guards against temptation. These qualities don't come from striving. They are the byproduct of a life surrendered, forgiven, and aligned with the truth. They are the living proof of a transformed identity, the mark of someone feeding the right wolf.
That's so true. And I was sharing with you that there's a situation that I'm just over trying with it. I'm done striving. And that's exactly what you're saying. And I do know when I strive at it, it's not the integrity type of virtues that come forth. It's I get frustrated, and frustration then turns into anger and probably treating harshly. So that striving, just let the characteristics from surrendering control, surrendering to God's will. So whatever's going to happen, let it happen. And that's when the peace and the love and the joy come forth, because I'm not trying.
There's no striving when it's just coming out of your soul. So in contrast, when a person walks according to their own will, like you were saying, another kind of fruit begins to appear: bitterness instead of love, misery instead of joy, chaos instead of peace, impatience, cruelty, corruption, betrayal, harshness, and indulgence indulgence take root where pride and pain have not been surrendered. This negative fruit is the evidence of a divided conscience in a self-serving master, almost a heart that's disconnected from its creator. And you cannot fake that harvest. The fruit always reveals the root.
I love that. The fruit always reveals the root. That's a good one.
So here's a great example. I remember when I was having a tough time with the person that I was under leadership with. And from my perspective, really nasty comments, rolling eyes, just the body language was brutal. In fact, some of the people that would see that treatment of me would come up to me and be like, what's the deal? It was really weird because it put me in a position of, I don't know, maybe he's having a bad day. You didn't want to get into the gossip of it, but the body language is off. I know how to read a room. It's either on or it's off. It's not rocket science. But at the time, I was still in my people pleaser and savior complex mode. And so I would just try and be in this horrific relationship, trying to people please my way through it, but feeling very devastated a lot. I would have to come home and spend probably 3 days just getting regrounded after. And one time when I was praying about it, I was like, God, I need help. It's a work relationship. So I'm not at the place where I'm ready to leave. So how do I deal with this? And he was like, I want you to look up the fruit of the Spirit. Does this person have love, joy, peace, patience, all, the fruit of the Spirit? And I'm like, oh, no, it doesn't have any of that. So then that is their true character. That is the place they are coming from. When you have figured out that they are feeding the bad fruit or the bad wolf, then you will understand very clearly why they don't like you or want you in their space. And you should really see it as the wolf that wants to destroy you, honestly. And when I saw it from that perspective, when I got that kind of feedback from God, and I felt like it was from God, I was like, oh, we're dealing with something way different. This is a spiritual battle. This is not an ego buster of someone doesn't like me. This is a spiritual battle. And I will not let my light be destroyed by a human like that when I get that kind of revelation on how to deal with it. So bottom line, those two energies can't stay in the same space for very long. So when you're in that situation, you get to choose to move out of that space. You can be all of a sudden busy for the rest of your life. You can remove yourself from that completely. But I had a need to be right. So I'd stick around and just get my butt whooped with verbal abuse. And then I got to be right that I'm being mistreated over and over and over. And when I finally gave up the need to be right about it, I had a great time. My joy wasn't stolen as much. And so I hope you guys hear that in the sense of if you have a tough relationship that you're not able to choose out of right now or in the next month, this is one of those tools that you can use to remove yourself, but you have to give up the need to be right that you are being wronged.
That makes a lot of sense. And I think that'll be helpful for a lot of people in that situation. What it brought up for me was being in that same type of situation years and years ago with work under the more senior employee who was just horrendous, very dictatorship style of leadership. I remember feeling the same way. Every conversation, he's condescending and always that sarcasm that came across as I'm better than, always questioning decisions around work in a negative way, not in a constructive or helpful way. But I wasn't aware even of people pleasing, of any of the stuff that we talk about. So I'd feel like, what have I done wrong? But now looking back and knowing what I know, absolutely is feeding a totally different wolf than I was even then, even without all the spiritual growth. I've never been one to just be mean or condescending to people. And there was such a difference between our outlooks in life and towards people. But I felt like the problem was me, but that was that people pleasing in me. So had I heard conversation like this back then, it would have been really helpful for me at the time. Hopefully that's the case for other people listening now.
Because you would have said, I'm not going to get my joy stolen. And that's how I shifted in the middle of this relationship.
I didn't think anything of it. I just kept living life from one role to the next. Still had the same kind of outlook that I've got to be the one that makes other people happy. And that's a terrible way to live. And that carries through until you start addressing that feeling.
It's exhausting, but you had a need to have someone that toxic talking to you like that so that you could be right that you weren't enough.
I agree with you. But I think having people like that in your life starts making you feel that way and you start believing it. So then it just snowballs. I wasn't addressing having the beliefs behind what made me feel like I was the one that needed to make the situation better or make the person like me more. So then my belief just kept getting stronger that there was something wrong with me.
Yes, because I've actually been in a marriage like that. And I've never really questioned my gifts, my looks, my body, what I had to offer, my personality, my humor until I was with that man. And I guess I just needed to sign up for a big old glass of, you are not worthy of cherishing love. So I got to the point where when I removed my ego and the need to be liked from the equation, and then obviously that served me way better. You will never beat the wolf of hatred, envy, drunkenness, all of the negativity. So just stop trying. Just love the best you can and move out of the energy as much as possible. And this is a spiritual battle. It's nothing other than that.
I love how you said just remove the need to be liked. If I'm grounded enough in fruits of the spirit and grounded enough in who I believe God created me to be, then what does it matter if anyone else doesn't like me?
Right.
Especially one person in particular who is a dictator type leader or condescending or hateful. What does it matter if that person doesn't like me? I wish I could go back to that younger self and be like, hey, why do you need to like you? You do not.
So this is a funny example of a story when you actually change this up and you make it a game with God. So going back to the scenario I already talked about, when I realized it was a spiritual battle, I decided to be like, oh, we're going to do this battle. It's going to be awesome. So I would start praying for this person. And we always had a closeout circle. And I would put myself in their space and just pray silently to myself. And it would be such a negative energy for them. They would move out of my space. Like they would start coughing or sneezing or just something real wacky in order to leave the circle. And this is so crazy. But when they were done taking care of sneezing or whatever, they went back into the circle, but not next to me. And I was like, now I know what I'm dealing with and I have authority over this situation. It just was something to think about. Start playing around with it. If you have to stay in the job, then have fun with it instead of being tormented and hating your job.
You were giving authority over it to God by praying, putting it in God's hands. And that person that you're talking about or anyone else can't match that. So you absolutely, in partnership with God, had authority over it.
So if you ever feel weird, like a situation is weird, maybe someone's praying your negative energy out of their space. Just something to think about. Or maybe we can all just start doing that on a regular basis.
I'm going to have to give that a try next time I'm near someone that's feeling negative.
Yeah, I'm sure you have plenty of opportunities to give that a whirl.
I'm going to try it. I'll let you know. I'll report back.
So awesome discussion again. And what about our reflection questions?
Yes. This week, journal about which wolf I feed most with my thoughts and choices and attitudes each day. What fruit is showing up more in my life? And what relationship do I need to stop trying to win over with striving and people pleasing?
Those are some sweet journaling questions.
Those will be great questions to think on and ponder on this week for sure.
And just so you know, we created a document now that's in our website. If you want all the journal prompts from all the previous episodes, you can now get that on our website and print it out.
That'll be helpful to have with you and think on throughout the week when you have a few free moments of time. Well, thank you, Amanda. Great conversation as always. And thanks to our listeners.
See you next week. Thanks for joining us today. We know your time is valuable and we hope you have a phenomenal week.
Until our next episode, find more content and social links at stillwithpurpose.com.